"Please don't touch me," the Black Widow begged, but the preacher did, and lost his faith forever. The train wheezed to a stop at Ember Creek Station, belching black smoke into the dusty afternoon air. Lavender Grant stepped onto the wooden platform, clutching a worn carpetbag and a folded letter. Her dark skin glistened with perspiration from the long journey across the frontier. Whispers rippled through the small crowd like wildfire. A woman crossed herself. A man spat into the dirt and turned away. Children peered from behind their mothers' skirts, eyes wide with fear and curiosity. The Black Widow had arrived. Lavender held her head high despite the stares. She had expected this reception. Word traveled faster than trains in small towns, and her reputation had clearly preceded her. Two dead husbands had a way of marking a woman, especially one who looked like her. The inheritance letter crinkled in her grip as she walked down Main Street. Her late aunt's homestead waited somewhere beyond the dusty storefronts, but first she needed lodging. The Ember Creek Inn stood before her, its painted sign faded by sun and neglect. Inside, a plump woman with kind eyes wiped down tables. Hattie Rose looked up as the door creaked open. Her smile faltered for just a moment before returning, warmer than before. Other patrons fell silent. Chairs scraped against floorboards as people shifted uncomfortably. Some muttered prayers under their breath. Hattie stepped forward. Her voice carried across the room with deliberate clarity. She had a room available. The rate was fair. Lavender could stay as long as needed. A man at the bar snorted. He knew trouble when he saw it. His livestock had been dying for weeks. Crops withering in the fields. Now this woman shows up. Lavender reached for her purse, careful not to brush against anyone. She had learned long ago to maintain distance. Physical contact only made things worse. People saw what they expected to see, felt what they expected to feel. The church bell clanged 6 times as Mayor Jeremiah Bone strode through the inn's doors. His silver walking stick tapped against the floor with each step. Behind him trailed a younger man in a black coat, collar stark white against the dusty interior. Preacher Silas McBride had arrived in Ember Creek just 2 weeks prior. His sermons about cleansing the community of sin had drawn packed congregations. Now his eyes fixed on Lavender with unmistakable purpose. Jeremiah's voice boomed across the room. That inheritance claim would be challenged. Property laws existed for good reason. Some people simply had no legal standing in decent communities. The preacher nodded gravely. Evil took many forms. Sometimes it wore a pleasant face to deceive the righteous. Lavender's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She took her room key from Hattie and climbed the narrow stairs. Behind her, the whispers resumed with renewed intensity. Outside, another cow collapsed in a pasture. Children coughed in their beds. Wells ran muddy and strange. The town was dying, and everyone knew who to blame. 3 days passed in Ember Creek like a slow fever. Lavender kept to herself, venturing out only for necessities. Each trip to the general store brought fresh stares and hastily closed doors. The mercantile owner served her with trembling hands, as if her coins might burn his palms. She had examined her aunt's property deed a dozen times. The land was legally hers, inherited through proper channels with territorial approval. Yet Jeremiah Bone's challenge loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. The homestead sat 2 miles outside town, a modest structure with peeling paint and a sagging porch. Weeds choked the garden where her aunt once grew vegetables. Lavender swept the floors and aired out the musty rooms, trying to make peace with the ghosts of better times. On Sunday morning, church bells echoed across the valley. Lavender did not attend. She had learned that houses of worship rarely welcomed women like her, especially ones with her reputation. Instead, she walked the property boundaries, noting the creek that ran along the eastern edge. The water looked wrong somehow, murky where it should run clear. She knelt beside the bank but stopped herself from touching the surface. Her gift required contact, and she was not ready for whatever truths the water might reveal. Behind her, a horse snorted. Silas McBride sat astride a bay mare, his black coat immaculate despite the dusty ride. His Bible rested in his saddlebags alongside a silver flask of holy water. He had come with purpose. Lavender stood slowly, brushing dirt from her skirts. She recognized the look in his eyes, zealous certainty mixed with righteous duty. She had seen it before in other places, other times. He dismounted with practiced grace. His boots crunched on the dry earth as he approached. The morning sun cast long shadows between them. Silas spoke of salvation, of redemption for the blackest souls. His voice carried the trained cadence of countless sermons, each word carefully chosen for maximum impact. Lavender stepped back. She had heard such speeches before. They always ended the same way. He pressed forward, Bible clutched in one hand. The holy water glinted in the other. God's mercy knew no bounds, he proclaimed. Even the most cursed could find peace through divine intervention. Again she retreated. Her back touched the rough bark of an oak tree. Nowhere left to go. The preacher's eyes blazed with fervent conviction. He had come to cast out demons, to break whatever unholy spell had settled over Ember Creek. The townspeople deserved protection from supernatural threats. Lavender raised her hands, palms outward. Her voice came out smaller than intended. She begged him not to touch her. Please. She could not bear to bring more misfortune upon anyone. Silas paused. Something in her tone gave him momentary hesitation. But his mission burned too bright to be deterred by a woman's pleas. He stepped closer. The Bible fell from his grasp as he reached out with both hands. His fingers aimed for her forehead, the traditional placement for holy blessing. She pressed herself against the tree trunk. Her words came faster now, more desperate. She truly did not want to hurt him. Whatever people said about her curse, she bore no malice toward anyone. But Silas had made his choice. His palms pressed against her temples. The holy water spilled forgotten into the dust. The world exploded into light and shadow. Visions crashed through his mind like flood water through a broken dam. Images cascaded without order or reason, each one vivid as lived memory. Lavender knelt beside a child's sickbed, pressing cool cloths to a fevered brow. Her first husband lay bleeding in tall grass, 3 bullet wounds in his chest. He had died protecting a family fleeing north to freedom. The scenes shifted and blurred. A yellow fever epidemic raged through a distant town. Lavender and her second husband worked side by side in a makeshift hospital. She held dying children while he mixed medicines with shaking hands. More images flooded in. Her grandmother teaching her to read herbs and illness through touch. Lavender binding wounds on blue and gray soldiers alike, caring nothing for the color of their uniforms. Her second husband collapsing from exhaustion and disease, victim of the same plague they fought together. Silas saw truth in each vision. No curses, no supernatural evil. Only a woman who had loved deeply and lost everything to circumstances beyond her control. The visions shattered as suddenly as they began. Silas stumbled backward, gasping. His hands shook as if palsied. The certainty that had carried him here crumbled like sand castles in high tide. Lavender slumped against the oak tree, drained by the unexpected contact. She had not meant for him to see so much. Her gift rarely revealed itself so completely to strangers. The preacher stared at her with new eyes. Everything he thought he knew about good and evil had just been turned upside down. His faith, once solid as bedrock, now felt as fragile as spun glass. He mounted his horse without another word. The ride back to town passed in stunned silence. That evening, 3 more cattle died in the fields surrounding Ember Creek. A child developed strange spots on her arms. The well water at the schoolhouse ran rust-colored. Jeremiah Bone called for an emergency town meeting. The time had come to take decisive action against the woman who was destroying their community. Silas sat alone in his small church, staring at the cross above the altar. For the first time in his adult life, he questioned everything he believed about divine justice and human nature. Hattie Rose found Lavender sitting by the creek the next morning. The innkeeper carried a basket of fresh biscuits and hot coffee, her face creased with concern. She had noticed the preacher's strange behavior after his visit to the homestead. Lavender accepted the food gratefully. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around the warm cup. The previous day's encounter had drained her more than usual. Hattie settled beside her on the grassy bank. She had questions but asked them gently. What exactly had happened with Silas McBride? Why did he look like he had seen a ghost? The story came out in fragments. Lavender spoke of her grandmother first, a respected healer in their old community near Atlanta. The woman had possessed a rare gift. She could touch objects, people, even animals and see their true nature, their history, their pain. The ability had passed to Lavender's mother, then to Lavender herself. 3 generations of women who saw too much, felt too deeply. It was both blessing and curse. Hattie listened without judgment. She had suspected something unusual about her guest. The way Lavender avoided contact. The careful distance she maintained from everyone. The tale of Lavender's first husband emerged slowly. Thomas had been a blacksmith with gentle hands and fierce convictions. He sheltered families fleeing slavery, provided them with horses and supplies for the dangerous journey north. One night, slave catchers tracked a family to their farm. Thomas told Lavender to hide in the root cellar with the refugees. He faced 3 armed men alone. She had touched his body afterward, felt his final moments through her gift. His only thoughts had been of protecting the innocent. No fear for himself, only love for those he died defending. Her second husband came later, Dr. Marcus Webb, a traveling physician who treated anyone regardless of their ability to pay. Lavender assisted him, using her gift to diagnose ailments that puzzled conventional medicine. The yellow fever outbreak in New Orleans had claimed hundreds. Marcus and Lavender worked 18-hour days in makeshift hospitals. She could touch patients and immediately understand their condition, their chances of survival. Marcus collapsed on the 15th day. The fever took him within hours. Lavender held his burning hand as he died, feeling his satisfaction at lives saved, his only regret leaving her alone. 2 husbands, 2 deaths from noble causes. Yet the world saw only a woman whose men died young. Hattie's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She understood now why Lavender feared human contact. Every touch brought visions, emotions, truths that others were not ready to accept. That afternoon, Lavender began her own investigation. She walked the creek bed upstream, noting dead fish floating belly up in stagnant pools. The water grew murkier with each bend. She found the first dead cow 2 miles from town. The animal lay beside the creek, its eyes clouded with sickness. Lavender pulled on thick gloves and touched the beast's flank. Visions of agony flooded her mind. Burning thirst, poison spreading through veins like liquid fire. The cow had drunk from the creek repeatedly, each sip bringing more contamination into its system. More dead cattle dotted the landscape upstream. Lavender touched each one, building a map of suffering in her mind. The poisoning grew worse the farther she traveled from town. She reached the source near sunset. A crude mining operation scarred the hillside like an open wound. Tailings and chemical runoff poured directly into the creek. Equipment lay scattered across the site, abandoned until morning. Lavender knelt beside the contaminated water. Even through her gloves, she could feel the wrongness. This was no natural sickness. Someone had done this deliberately. She collected water samples in glass jars, careful not to let the liquid touch her skin. The evidence would be crucial for what came next. The ride back to town took her past Jeremiah Bones' mansion. Light blazed from every window. Carriages filled the circular drive. The mayor was entertaining guests, celebrating something. Meanwhile, Silas paced his small quarters behind the church. Sleep eluded him completely. The visions from Lavender's touch replayed endlessly in his mind. Every assumption he had made about her proved false. He pulled out a leather portfolio hidden beneath his mattress. Official documents bore territorial seals. Investigation orders signed by the governor himself. Reports of illegal mining operations and political corruption. Silas McBride was more than a traveling preacher. He was a federal investigator sent to Ember Creek under cover of religious duty. His mission: uncover the source of environmental destruction plaguing the region. The portfolio contained witness statements, surveyor reports, and financial records. All roads led to one conclusion: someone with significant resources was strip mining without permits, poisoning water supplies across 3 counties. He had suspected Jeremiah Bone from the beginning. The mayor's wealth seemed disproportionate to his official salary. His political connections reached into territorial capitals. His influence kept uncomfortable questions buried. But the investigation had stalled without hard evidence. Until now, Silas stared at his reflection in the darkened window. His encounter with Lavender had shaken his faith, but it had also clarified his true purpose. Justice mattered more than doctrine. Truth trumped comfortable lies. Outside, church bells chimed midnight. Jeremiah's party continued into the small hours, laughter echoing across the sleeping town. By morning, notices appeared on every door in Ember Creek. Emergency town meeting. All citizens required to attend. The future of their community hung in the balance. The time for secrets had ended. The town hall filled to capacity by noon. Every chair taken, people standing shoulder to shoulder along the walls. Farmers rubbed elbows with shopkeepers. Wives clutched their husbands' arms. Children pressed their faces against dirty windows from outside. Jeremiah Bone commanded the makeshift stage, his silver walking stick gleaming under lamplight. He wore his finest suit, the one reserved for territorial meetings and funeral services. Today felt like both. The assembled crowd buzzed with nervous energy. Another child had fallen sick during the night. The baker's well had gone completely dry. Crops withered faster than anyone could remember. Silas sat in the front row, his federal documents hidden beneath his coat. His hands remained steady, but his mind raced through possibilities. Everything depended on the next few hours. Jeremiah raised his arms for silence. His voice boomed across the packed room without need for amplification. Years of political speeches had taught him projection. The mayor spoke of corruption, of supernatural forces threatening their Christian community. He painted vivid pictures of cursed women bringing pestilence and death. His words found fertile ground in frightened minds. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Heads nodded in unison. The case seemed clear enough. Problems started when the Black Widow arrived. Simple cause and effect. A motion was proposed. Lavender Grant would be ordered to leave Ember Creek immediately. Her property claim would be voided. The territorial authorities would be informed of her dangerous influence. The vote seemed foregone conclusion. Hands began rising across the room. Then the rear doors opened. Lavender walked in alone, her head held high despite the hostile stares. She wore her best dress, the blue one saved for special occasions. Her hair was pinned neatly beneath a simple hat. The crowd fell silent. Some crossed themselves. Others whispered prayers under their breath. A few mothers pulled their children closer. She carried a canvas bag in one hand and a rolled map in the other. Her steps echoed against wooden floors as she approached the stage. Each footfall seemed to thunder in the sudden quiet. Jeremiah's face flushed red. This was not part of his plan. The woman should have fled by now, saved everyone the unpleasantness of formal banishment. Lavender stopped at the foot of the stage. Her voice carried clearly to every corner of the room. She requested permission to address the assembly. As a property owner and citizen, she claimed that right. Angry shouts erupted from the crowd. She had no rights here, no standing in their community. Her very presence defiled sacred ground. But Hattie Rose stood up from her seat near the middle. Her voice cut through the chaos. Every person deserved to speak in their own defense. That was American justice. Other voices joined hers. Not many, but enough to tip the balance. Fair play demanded a hearing. Let her speak, then vote her out properly. Jeremiah had little choice. He gestured toward the stage with exaggerated courtesy. Let the woman damn herself with her own words. Lavender climbed the steps slowly. The hostile crowd pressed closer, hundreds of eyes boring into her. She had faced angry mobs before. This felt no different. She unrolled her map across the speaker's podium. The creek system spread out in careful detail, marked with red X's where she had found dead cattle. Water flow patterns showed clear contamination sources. Her canvas bag yielded glass jars filled with murky liquid. She had collected samples from a dozen locations upstream. The evidence spoke for itself. Lavender's voice remained calm and measured. She explained the poisoning systematically. Chemical runoff from illegal mining operations, tailings dumped directly into waterways, environmental destruction on a massive scale. The crowd stirred uneasily. This was not the confession they expected. Where were the admissions of supernatural wrongdoing? The appeals for mercy from a cursed woman? Jeremiah interrupted loudly. Anyone could collect dirty water and make wild accusations. Where was the proof of these alleged mining operations? What evidence supported such fantastic claims? Lavender met his gaze steadily. She had more than water samples. She had seen the truth with her own eyes, felt it through her gift. But revealing that would only reinforce their supernatural fears. Instead, she made an impossible offer. She would prove her innocence through direct demonstration. Let any person bring forward a personal item. She would touch it and reveal what it told her about their character. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Was she admitting to witchcraft? Confessing to supernatural powers? Jeremiah laughed harshly. The woman had just condemned herself. Witchcraft was a territorial crime, punishable by immediate exile or worse. But Hattie Rose stepped forward again. She pulled a silver locket from her neck, the one containing her late mother's portrait. If Lavender possessed evil powers, surely they would reveal themselves now. Lavender accepted the locket with steady hands. The moment her fingers closed around the silver, visions flooded her mind. She saw Hattie as a young girl, caring for a bedridden mother with endless patience, sacrifice and love in equal measure. She spoke of Hattie's kindness, the countless meals given to hungry travelers, the rooms provided free to families in need, a lifetime of quiet generosity that few had noticed. Hattie's eyes filled with tears. Every word rang true, details only her deceased mother could have known. Others came forward hesitantly. A farmer's worn hat revealed years of honest labor. A merchant's ledger book showed fair dealing despite difficult times. A mother's wedding ring spoke of enduring love through hardship. Each reading painted pictures of essential human goodness. No curses, no supernatural evil, only the complex truths of ordinary lives lived with dignity. The crowd's mood shifted perceptibly. Fear gave way to curiosity, then amazement. This was not witchcraft but something far more mysterious. Finally, Lavender turned to Jeremiah. She requested his walking stick for the final demonstration. The mayor's face went white as fresh snow. Jeremiah clutched his walking stick tighter, knuckles white against the silver handle. The crowd waited in breathless silence. Every eye focused on the standoff between mayor and accused woman. He forced a laugh that sounded hollow in the packed room. His walking stick was just a piece of carved wood and metal, nothing more. What could it possibly reveal? But his hands trembled as he spoke. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool afternoon air. The confident politician had vanished, replaced by a cornered animal. Lavender extended her hand patiently. She had seen that look before in other men facing exposure. Fear wore the same face regardless of social standing. The crowd pressed closer. Voices called out from all directions. Let her touch it. What was he afraid of? A man with nothing to hide should welcome the test. Jeremiah's eyes darted toward the exits. Both doors were blocked by curious townspeople. His usual escape routes had been cut off by his own success at drawing a crowd. Silas rose from his front row seat. His federal documents crinkled in his coat as he moved. The time had come to reveal his true identity, but first he wanted to see how this confrontation played out. The preacher's voice carried new authority. He called upon Jeremiah to submit to the same test as everyone else. True leadership required courage in the face of scrutiny. More voices joined the chorus. The mayor had demanded this meeting. He had accused Lavender of supernatural crimes. Now let him prove his own innocence through the same method. Jeremiah looked around desperately for allies. His usual supporters avoided his gaze. The crowd's mood had shifted completely. They smelled blood in the water, and it was his. With shaking hands, he extended the walking stick toward Lavender. The silver handle gleamed like a beacon under the lamplight. His fingers refused to release their grip. She touched the metal surface gently, her palm barely making contact. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Visions exploded through her consciousness with violent intensity. Secret meetings in smoke-filled rooms. Bribes changing hands under cover of darkness. Territorial officials bought and paid for with stolen silver. The mining operation spread before her like a festering wound. Dozens of workers laboring in dangerous conditions. No safety equipment. No environmental protections. Pure profit extracted from human misery and ecological destruction. She saw the contamination spreading downstream. Cattle dying by the hundreds. Children falling sick from poisoned water. Families forced to abandon homesteads that had been in their bloodlines for generations. More disturbing visions followed. Jeremiah's knowledge of her aunt's silver claims. The deliberate decision to mine the property illegally while challenging the inheritance. A calculated theft disguised as legal proceedings. The walking stick revealed financial records hidden in secret accounts. Enough stolen wealth to buy territorial judgeships. Political influence stretching from local sheriffs to the governor's mansion. Lavender's voice rang out clear and strong. She spoke of corruption that ran deeper than anyone imagined. Environmental crimes that had poisoned 3 counties. Political bribery that had corrupted the territorial justice system. The crowd listened in stunned silence as she detailed Jeremiah's criminal empire. Every revelation struck like lightning in the packed room. Gasps and murmurs punctuated her steady recitation of facts. Jeremiah lunged forward, trying to snatch the walking stick from her grasp. He screamed denials and accusations. The woman was lying, using tricks and illusions to deceive honest people, but his desperate protests only confirmed what everyone could see. Guilt was written across his face in letters 10 feet tall. Silas stepped onto the stage, his federal documents now visible in his hands. The time for pretense had ended. His true mission could finally be revealed. The crowd fell silent again as he displayed his official credentials. Territorial Investigation Authority. Federal backing from the governor's office. A mandate to uncover illegal mining and political corruption. He had come to Ember Creek weeks earlier, posing as a traveling preacher while gathering evidence. The investigation had stalled without concrete proof of Jeremiah's crimes. Until now. Silas spoke of his crisis of faith, but not the kind the crowd expected. His religious certainty had crumbled when he touched Lavender and saw her true nature. The experience had taught him that justice mattered more than doctrine. His loss of traditional faith had become something deeper, a commitment to truth regardless of personal cost, a willingness to admit when his assumptions proved completely wrong. The walking stick contained more secrets than even Lavender had initially revealed. She touched it again, this time focusing on specific details. Property deeds hidden in Jeremiah's personal safe. The original mining claims filed by her aunt before her death. Legal documents proved beyond doubt that Lavender owned the silver deposits. Jeremiah had been stealing from her inheritance while publicly challenging her right to the property. His illegal mining operation had been built on her land using her resources. The crowd's anger finally boiled over. Shouts erupted from every corner of the room. Jeremiah had poisoned their children while lining his own pockets. He had destroyed their community for personal gain. Several farmers moved toward the stage with obvious intent. Justice could be delivered immediately without waiting for territorial authorities. But Silas raised his hands for calm. Federal law would handle Jeremiah's crimes properly. Mob violence would only create more problems for everyone involved. The mayor sagged against the podium, his political career and criminal enterprise collapsing simultaneously. His silver walking stick lay forgotten on the wooden floor. Outside, the first clean rain in months began falling on Ember Creek's dusty streets. Territorial marshals arrived in Ember Creek 3 days later, their badges gleaming in the morning sun. Jeremiah Bone offered no resistance as they shackled his wrists. His empire of corruption crumbled faster than a house of cards in a windstorm. The illegal mining operation was shut down immediately. Workers who had labored in dangerous conditions were relocated to legitimate claims with proper safety measures. The contaminated water sources began their slow recovery within a week. Lavender's legal ownership of the silver deposits was confirmed through territorial court. The inheritance challenge evaporated once Jeremiah's fraudulent involvement came to light. Justice moved swiftly when federal authorities applied pressure. But the true transformation of Ember Creek ran deeper than legal proceedings. Silas established himself as both preacher and community leader, his dual identity no longer hidden. His sermons took on new themes. He spoke of seeing beyond surface appearances to the truth beneath, of the courage required to admit when assumptions proved wrong. His crisis of faith had evolved into something stronger, not the loss of belief, but the refinement of it. Justice and compassion mattered more than rigid doctrine. Truth trumped comfortable prejudice every time. The congregation grew as word spread of the preacher who investigated corruption and fought for the powerless. Families traveled from neighboring counties to hear him speak. His church became a beacon of progressive Christianity in the frontier. Lavender opened her healing practice in the renovated church basement. She used her gift openly now, helping townspeople resolve conflicts and diagnose mysterious ailments. What had once been feared as witchcraft was now recognized as a remarkable blessing. Patients came from hundreds of miles away. A touch of her hand could reveal the source of chronic pain that had puzzled doctors for years. She could sense the emotional wounds that manifested as physical symptoms. Her reputation spread across 3 territories, not as the Black Widow who brought death, but as the woman who brought healing and truth. Medical colleges invited her to demonstrate her abilities. Territorial officials consulted her on difficult legal cases. The silver mine reopened under ethical management. Environmental protections were implemented from the beginning. Workers received fair wages and safety equipment. A percentage of profits funded community improvement projects. Ember Creek transformed from a dying frontier town into a model of prosperity and inclusion. The clean water returned within 2 months. Crops flourished in the rich soil. Livestock thrived on uncontaminated pastures. Hattie Rose expanded her inn into a full resort and community center. She partnered with Lavender to create a healing retreat that attracted visitors from across the country. Their friendship became the foundation of a thriving business empire. The inn welcomed travelers of all backgrounds and colors. Hattie had learned from Lavender's example that character mattered more than appearance. Her establishment became known for its progressive policies and warm hospitality. 6 months after the town meeting that changed everything, Ember Creek hosted its first annual Harvest Festival. The celebration drew families from a dozen surrounding communities. Music and laughter filled the streets from dawn to midnight. Lavender walked through the festivities with genuine joy. Children who had once thrown stones now asked for her blessing. Adults who had crossed themselves in fear now sought her counsel on personal matters. She had finally found a place where her gift was appreciated rather than feared, where her true nature could flourish without pretense or hiding. The curse had become a blessing through community acceptance. Silas delivered the festival's opening prayer from a makeshift stage in the town square. He spoke of second chances and redemption, of the importance of looking beyond prejudice to see the humanity in everyone. As the celebration reached its peak, a lone figure stepped off the afternoon train. A young Mexican man with weathered clothes and fearful eyes. He carried everything he owned in a single burlap sack. The crowd noticed him immediately. Whispers began to spread through the festival grounds. Stranger, outsider, potential threat to their newfound prosperity. But this time the reaction was different. Hattie Rose approached the newcomer first. She offered him food and drink without payment. Her inn had room for anyone who needed shelter. Silas stepped forward next. The church could provide additional assistance if required. Every person deserved dignity regardless of their circumstances or appearance. Lavender watched from across the square as the community rallied around the frightened stranger. Children offered to share their festival treats. Adults provided information about available work. The transformation was complete. She walked over to the young man, extending her hand in greeting. He hesitated for a moment, then clasped her fingers gently. Visions flowed between them. She saw his long journey north from Mexico, the family he had left behind, the hope for a better life that drove him across dangerous terrain. She also saw his skills, his knowledge of metalworking and engineering, the innovations he could bring to their mining operation, the contributions he could make to their growing community. Lavender smiled warmly as she welcomed him to Ember Creek. This was how it should be. This was how it would always be from now on. The festival continued around them, a celebration of what was possible when people chose understanding over fear, truth over prejudice, and love over hatred. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.